To you, the 9 to 5er, just making your way home. To you, the all-night driver, out in your cab alone. To you,
Hi, my name is Deborah Hall, and I'm the host of the Oregon Coalition's Labor Radio Show on KBOO FM based in Portland, Oregon.
Labor Radio.
You better listen, my brother, 'cause if you do, you can hear their voices still calling from across the years. And they're crying across the ocean, they're crying across the land.
Dear friends, welcome to the Labor Radio Podcast Network series highlighting the work of our members. The growing network of over 80 shows in 5 countries serves as a one-stop shop for audiences looking for labor content, and as a resource for labor broadcasters, podcasters, and content producers. My name is Evan Papp, and I produce Empathy Media Lab's podcast on labor, political economy, arts, and culture, and we're a proud member of the Labor Radio Podcast Network. Today, I'm speaking with Deborah Hall, who is the host of Oregon Coalition of Black Trade Unionists on Labor Radio KBOO FM in Portland, Oregon. Deborah, so nice to see you. Could we begin with the question of talking a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and what led you to organize labor?
Absolutely, Evan, and thank you. Glad to be here. And so I grew up in Portland, Oregon, born in the 50s, grew up in Portland in the 60s, 70s, started my activism early, probably in the early 60s. And the section of town that we lived in was basically the area of town that they said where the hippies lived. And so there was a lot of political activity. And what I would do, Evan, is there was a school ballot measure. I was in second grade. I'll never forget it. There was a school ballot measure. And so we were concerned, because we're going to school and you hear like your parents talking about, oh my God, funding for schools, whatever. So what I did was I gathered some of my schoolmates. We went out to the homes around the school and asked them, could we use their yard signs? Took the signs, marched the kids around the playground. We got on the news, we got them in the newspapers. And that kind of got me started with, getting involved in community activities. How my mom raised us is, instead of complaining, there's a lot of work to do. And so, why don't you put your mouth where your complaints are and get to work and try to make some of these issues better? And it seemed, kind of a natural migration to labor, because as a person of color, as a woman, I was finding not having, kind of a educational background, it was difficult for me to get, decent jobs. And I kind of moved into the labor sphere, found that there was a voice there was power there for people like me, and a way to have a good life and to provide that for my community and for other folks. And so I've been sold since day one. Absolutely the way to go.
So some people aren't as conscious and don't learn those lessons so early in life and may not be interested in labor or labor media and labor news. So why do you think unions and organized labor are important and should be covered in the media?
Like I stated earlier, for those of us that my education, I have a high school education, a high school diploma. I've taken some college classes. And having a union job, I had some pretty decent jobs in the private sector, but they did not afford me any security. My pay was decent, but did I have a good retirement? Did I have good benefits? Did I have someone fighting for me on the job? And was I able to also lend my voice and have an effect on what was going to happen to me in that workplace? As a person of color, that meant everything, because, outside of our homes, we don't have control over much. And the union gives us that, your sense of pride, the dignity, also for the job that we do, there's a lot of pride there. And so I think that, folks, if you're a working person, it's a way to get control of yourself and your life and have a say in what happens in your workplace and on the job.
And what unions have you been a part of over the years?
My very first union, I started working for Safeway. And so I was retail clerks, which is now UFCW, and that was in the late 70s. And then my union, American Federation of Teachers, was a member for I'm a retiree now. I just retired last year, but a 22-year member of the American Federation of Teachers.
Great. And could you talk a bit about your show and why you wanted to start it and what it's about?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so our show, we are in our first show was Labor Day of 2013. And we were very excited to get the show because as a Black organization, the Oregon Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, we also were excited to have the opportunity to have that outreach, to be able to come into the studio once a month and have this radio show to talk about, to bring union members on to address not only issues for Black union members, but for all union members. We talk about local issues, we talk about national issues, we talk about international issues. And so we've been able to have local folks on. We had a young man who was the president of the Afro-Cuban dock workers. He was on our show a couple years ago. We have some folks from Nigeria on our show when they were having issues with their girls getting kidnapped. We've dealt with, talk with folks on the national level, national labor leaders, local labor leaders, local everyday folks. And so it's important to us to be able to get that word out, to let people know that there's a place for you, there's a voice for you, there are things happening in labor, but we're also trying to, get folks kind of stirred up and what things can we do together? What things can we do individually? What's our responsibility?
So talking a little bit about like the class and race issue, I guess, and obviously you could talk about this all day and how they're interconnected. And I guess from, looking from an outsider looking in, oftentimes there's just this focus on like the white working class and things like that. And these major issues are being overlooked. And before we started recording, you did talk about some of the issues you're really pushing forward with your group in 2021 and beyond. And I guess, could you just talk a little bit about that from your perspective, from maybe people who have no understanding?
Certainly. So some of the issues that my organization we're looking at, and we're trying to keep Black Lives Matter in the forefront. We get some pushback for that, and I get pushback. People say all lives matter, blue lives matter, and we're not negating anyone's life, but I don't think anyone can deny. If you look at on a case-by-case basis, I don't think that you can deny that there's some unfairness and there's a disparity there. Okay, all that we're looking for is fairness. Okay, if something happens and if this is what the punishment is, then that's the punishment for everyone. And so that's the word. That's what we're trying to live with. We're also trying to work with our allies, because what we understand as people of color is that we can't change the minds of white people. Folks have got to come to their understandings and their agreements to themselves. What we can do is spend time together. And we try to do that as our union. We're not only a Black organization, we want everyone to get involved. Everyone who's involved in a labor union can certainly be a part of our organization. And we want them every voice, because if we even stay segregated there in our unions, nothing will ever change. And so everything that we're trying to do is to try to put, Black Lives Matter at the forefront, regardless if it's healthcare issues, if it's housing issues, if it's education issues, because all of those things, matter. And then, once I feel that we can get folks on the same page there, we can really look at what the real underlying issue is, and that's classism. Because the folks that are in charge, they don't want any of us to have anything, okay? And if they can start with one group and to get us to continue to section each other off, we're all done for, if we're all not fighting for each other. Because if I have bad water, you have bad water too. Everyone in the community suffers. And so why don't we get together and fight for what our needs are in this community, so that our kids have something. And so that's what we're pushing for, is for that continuity, for that voice, to bring folks in and to have them get involved with us. Because again, if you're involved with people on a personal level, you're going to stand up and you're going to fight for them as your friends and your family, not some stranger that, oh yeah, I work with that person, or they're in my union, but I don't know much about them. we have to start galvanizing ourselves as family again. And I think that we won't allow anyone to push us around or to be, be mean to us or to treat us wrong if that happens.
So as a member of the Labor Radio Podcast Network, how did you hear about it? And how did you kind of like join, I guess, because we're always looking to expand the number of members and not only in the United States, but outside as well. And why do you think a network like this is important?
How I heard about the network is I had been getting the emails for them a while, but I believe it was you and Chris who reached out to Tina Turner Morford, who was our president for Oregon Coalition of Trade Unionists, to do those where they the live streams on Facebook, excuse me. And so after we start doing the show, the outreach is incredible. And the voice of labor is not just labor centered. We're also community members. And the things that are talked about on these shows are things that do affect every person all over the world. I think that because we don't get really major time on major networks, not even networks that are friendly to us, this is critical. It's a way that we can become in control of our word, and to make sure that it's our voice, that it's not being, filtered through someone else's filters and being dumbed down or being added to or subtracted from. It's critical. And I think that more folks should look to get involved. And it's a lot of fun too, you guys, being able to produce your own show and to get your point of view out there the way that you want it stated. It's awesome. And it's very powerful.
So what advice would you give to people who maybe are thinking about starting a show and are a little scared? Because what was your process in developing the show that you have?
We just got the opportunity, I believe the gentleman, Jamie Partridge, called us. He said that they had a spot open. Our labor radio show is a KBOO hosted weekly. We do the first Monday of each month. And so we were provided that opportunity. We looked at it as opportunity to get our voice out to the world. And we jumped on it. And then we thought about, you know what? We don't know what we're doing, but we'll figure it out because we're on the radio. We have a voice and we have airwaves and we have folks that, I've had friends of mine that are, have been in Pennsylvania and driving down whatever and turn on the radio. Hey, I just heard Deborah Hall on the da-da-da-da-da, and so that's cool in itself. But the fact that my friend in Pennsylvania could hear what we were talking about labor-wise in Portland, Oregon, blew me away. So if you folks are thinking about it, go for it. Just go for it. You'll figure it out. You'll work it out. And there's a network here to support you, and they do a really good job. So I wouldn't hesitate.
So in closing, looking into the future of organized labor, where do you see opportunity and hope?
Matthew, I see opportunity everywhere. Everywhere. I think we need to get back to talking to each other. And I feel that even during this pandemic, that this medium here, Zoom, there's a face to talking. We got into texting and email. If this is what it's going to be, we have a huge advantage because no one has an issue with getting on Facebook and doing their live streaming. So one step up for the show, it's just one step up to do the show. I'm extremely hopeful. And the reason I'm hopeful is that young people are hopeful, and they're giving me hope. As an older person, I can look back on all the things that have happened in my 60 plus years, but what gives me hope is that those young people, they're promising me that they're going to keep fighting and they're going to keep holding that torch and they're going to move forward. And I feel that it's up to folks like me who have been around a while, to try to open those doors for us to work our inside game, because I'm in place to do that. But I'm very hopeful. I'm extremely hopeful. That's all I have right now is hope.
You better listen, my brother, 'cause if you do, you can hear their voices still calling from across the years. And they're crying across the ocean, they're crying across the land, and they will until we all come to understand. None of us are free, none of us are free, none of us are free, if one of us is chained, none of us are free, 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 if one of us is chained, none of us are free. There are people in darkness, they just can't see the light. If we don't say it's wrong, then that says it's right. We got to feel for each other, let our brothers know we're here. Got to get the message, send it out all loud and clear. None of us are free, none of us are free, none of us are free, if one of us is chained, none of us are free. It's the single truth.